The rain battered the windows of our cramped New York apartment, a relentless drumbeat that matched the pounding of my heart. I thought I was alone, tangled in my sheets, whispering his name in the dark. Elliot. But then the door creaked, and there he was, staring, his eyes burning with something I couldn't name. It was 2 a.m., and the city outside was a blur of neon and shadow. I'd been restless, my mind spiraling into dangerous territory, replaying every moment I'd spent with Elliot over the past 6 months. He was my roommate, my best friend, the guy who made my coffee too sweet and laughed too loud at my bad jokes. But he was also the one who made my pulse race when he brushed past me in our tiny kitchen, his arm grazing mine like a spark. I'd been fighting it, this pull toward him, because I was terrified of ruining what we had. But that night, alone in my room, I let myself slip. I let his name fall from my lips, a quiet moan that felt like a confession. And then he heard it. Elliot stood frozen in the doorway, his damp hair clinging to his forehead from the rain-soaked walk home from his bartending shift. His leather jacket glistened, and his green eyes locked onto mine, sharp and unreadable. "Jude," he said, his voice low, almost a growl. What the hell was that? My face burned. I yanked the blanket over myself, as if it could hide the truth. "Nothing," I stammered, my voice cracking. "Just a dream. Go back to bed." He didn't move. Instead, he stepped inside, closing the door behind him with a soft click that felt louder than the storm outside. "A dream," he repeated, his tone laced with something dangerous, something that made my stomach twist. "You were moaning my name. Jude. Don't lie to me." I couldn't breathe. The air in the room felt too thick, too charged. Elliot was always intense, quick to laugh, quick to argue, but this was different. His gaze pinned me to the bed, and I saw the flicker of something new in his eyes. Curiosity. Maybe desire. Or maybe I was just projecting, desperate for him to feel what I felt. "Elliot." I started, but he cut me off, stepping closer until he was at the edge of my bed. The mattress dipped as he sat down, too close, his knee brushing mine through the blanket. My heart stuttered. "Say it again," he said, his voice softer now, but no less commanding. "Say my name like that again." I froze. This wasn't happening. This was Elliot, the guy who teased me about my terrible cooking and left his socks on the couch. The guy who'd never shown a hint of interest in me beyond friendship. But the way he was looking at me now, like he could see straight through to my soul, made me question everything. "I can't," I whispered, my throat tight. It was a mistake. His jaw tightened, and for a moment, I thought he'd leave. But then he leaned closer, his breath warm against my cheek. "If it was a mistake," he said, "then why do I want to hear it again? Why do I want to make you say it for real?" My world tilted. The rain outside faded, and all I could hear was the thud of my own pulse. Elliot's hand hovered near mine, not touching, but close enough that I felt the heat of him. I wanted to run. I wanted to pull him closer. I wanted to scream that I'd been in love with him for months, that every stupid moment we spent together watching bad horror movies, arguing over pizza toppings, stealing glances when he wasn't looking had carved him deeper into my heart. But I didn't. Because what if this was a game to him? What if he was just curious, and I was about to wreck everything? "Elliot," I said, my voice barely audible. You don't know what you're asking. He tilted his head, studying me like I was a puzzle he was determined to solve. Maybe I do, he said. Maybe I've been waiting for you to give me a reason to find out. The words hit me like a punch. Was he serious? Or was this just Elliot being Elliot reckless? Impulsive? Chasing a thrill? I searched his face for answers. But all I found was that same burning intensity. The kind that made me want to risk everything. Before I could respond, he stood abruptly, running a hand through his wet hair. I'm not letting this go, Jude, he said, his voice rough. You don't get to hide from this. Not anymore. He left the room, the door clicking shut behind him, and I was alone again, my heart racing in the silence. The rain kept falling, but it couldn't drown out the truth. I'd crossed a line, and there was no going back. The next morning, the apartment felt different, like the air itself was holding its breath. Elliot was in the kitchen, making coffee, acting like nothing had happened. But I saw the way his eyes lingered on me a second too long, the way his fingers tightened around his mug when I walked in. I tried to play it cool, muttering a quick morning before grabbing my own coffee. But my hands were shaking. We didn't talk about it. Not that day. Not the next. But the tension was there, a live wire humming between us. Every glance, every accidental touch, felt like it could ignite something. I caught myself watching him more than usual when he strummed his guitar absent-mindedly, when he laughed at something on his phone, when he stretched after a long shift, his shirt riding up just enough to show a sliver of skin. It was torture, and I was drowning in it. By the third day, I couldn't take it anymore. I cornered him in the living room, my heart in my throat. We need to talk, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. He raised an eyebrow, leaning back against the couch, all casual confidence. About what? He asked, but the smirk on his lips told me he knew exactly what. About the other night, I said, forcing myself to hold his gaze. You can't just say stuff like that and then act like it didn't happen. His smirk faded, replaced by something softer, something that made my chest ache. I'm not acting, Jude, he said. I'm waiting for you to figure out what you want. What I want. I laughed, bitter and desperate. What about you? You're the one who barged into my room, demanding things. What do you want, Elliot? He stood, closing the distance between us in 2 steps. He was so close I could smell the cedarwood in his cologne, feel the warmth radiating from him. I want you to stop pretending you don't feel this, he said, his voice low and urgent. I want you to admit you've been thinking about me the same way I've been thinking about you. My breath caught. You've been thinking about me. He laughed, a sharp, frustrated sound. God, Jude, are you blind? Why do you think I'm always here? Always finding excuses to be around you. I've been trying to figure you out for months. And then I hear you moaning my name. And it's like, fuck. Maybe I'm not crazy. Maybe you feel it too. I stared at him, my mind reeling. All this time, I thought I was alone in this. I thought my feelings were a secret I'd take to my grave. But now, standing here, with Elliot's eyes searching mine, I felt the weight of it all, the fear, the longing, the hope. Elliot, I said, my voice trembling. I'm scared. If we do this, If we cross this line, what if it ruins us? He reached out, his hand brushing my cheek, and I forgot how to breathe. What if it doesn't? He whispered. What if it's everything we've both been too afraid to say? And in that moment, with his hand on my face and the world shrinking to just the two of us, I made a choice. I leaned in, closing the gap, and kissed him. The kiss was fire, reckless and consuming, like we'd both been holding our breath for months and finally let go. Elliot's hands found my waist, pulling me closer, and I melted into him, my fingers tangling in his hair. The world outside our apartment didn't exist, just the heat of his mouth, the soft scrape of his stubble, the way he groaned my name like it was a prayer. But then he pulled back, his forehead resting against mine, his breath ragged. Jude, he whispered, his voice rough with want. Tell me this is real. Tell me you want this. I opened my eyes, meeting his, and saw the vulnerability there, the same fear I'd been carrying. It's real, I said, my voice steady despite the storm in my chest. I want you, Elliot. I've wanted you for so long. That was all it took. He kissed me again, harder this time, and we stumbled backward until my back hit the wall. His hands were everywhere in my face, my shoulders, sliding under my shirt, and I was dizzy with it, with the way he made me feel alive in a way I hadn't known was possible. But even as I lost myself in him, a small voice in the back of my mind whispered, what happens next? The days that followed were a blur of stolen moments. We were careful at first, hyper-aware of the fragile new thing between us. A brush of fingers in the kitchen, a lingering glance over breakfast, a kiss in the hallway when we thought no one was watching. But the more we gave in, the harder it was to hold back. Every touch felt like a promise, every look a confession. I was falling, hard and fast, and I didn't care about the consequences. But the world doesn't stop for love, and ours was no exception. Elliot's family was old school, conservative, the kind of people who'd never understand what we had. He'd told me stories his dad's lectures about traditional values, his mom's pointed questions about when he'd settled down with a nice girl. He'd laughed it off, but I saw the way his shoulders tensed when he talked about them. And then there was me, still grappling with my own identity, with the shame I'd carried since I was a kid in a small town where different was a dirty word. One night, we were sprawled on the couch, Elliot's head in my lap as I ran my fingers through his hair. The TV was on, some cheesy rom-com neither of us was watching. What are we doing, Jude? He asked suddenly, his voice quiet but heavy. This, us. Where's it going? I froze, my hand stilling. What do you mean? I asked, though I knew exactly what he meant. The question had been lurking in the back of my mind too, but I'd been too afraid to face it. He sat up, turning to face me. I mean, I'm all in. I want this, want you. But I know it's not that simple. My family, your job, the way people look at us, it's not going to be easy. I swallowed hard, the weight of his words settling over me. My job at the community center was already precarious, budget cuts were looming, and I'd heard whispers about optics from the board. Being openly queer in a place that served a conservative neighborhood could cost me everything. And Elliot, his family could cut him off, emotionally and financially. We were both walking a tightrope, and one wrong step could send us crashing. I don't care about easy, I said finally, reaching for his hand. I care about you. We'll figure it out. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. You make it sound so simple, he said, squeezing my hand. But I'm not letting you go, Jude. Not now. That night, we made love for the first time, and it was everything tender and desperate, clumsy and perfect. Afterward, as we lay tangled in my bed, the city humming outside, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe we could make this work. Maybe love was enough. But the universe had other plans. A week later, Elliot's phone buzzed while we were cooking dinner. He glanced at it, and his face went pale. It's my dad, he said, his voice tight. He's in town. Wants to meet up tomorrow. My stomach dropped. Does he know about us? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Elliot shook his head. No. But he's been asking questions. About why I'm still wasting time in the city. Why I haven't brought a girl home yet. He laughed, but it was hollow. He's gonna lose it if he finds out. I wanted to tell him it didn't matter, that we could face his dad together. But the words stuck in my throat. I'd spent so long hiding who I was. And now, with everything on the line, I wasn't sure I was brave enough to fight. The next day, Elliot left to meet his dad, and I stayed behind, pacing the apartment like a caged animal. Hours passed, and he didn't text, didn't call. When he finally came home, his face was a mask of anger and hurt. He knows, he said, his voice breaking. Someone saw us at the bar last week. Told him they saw me with a guy. He's done with me. Jude. I reached for him, but he pulled away, his hands shaking. He said I'm a disappointment. He continued, his voice raw. Said I'm throwing my life away. He's cutting me off rent. Everything. I don't even know how I'm going to pay for this place. My heart sank. The apartment, our home, was already a stretch on our budgets. Without his dad's help, we were screwed. But worse than that was the pain in Elliot's eyes. The kind that cut deeper than money or logistics. I wanted to fix it, to make it right, but I didn't know how. Elliot, I said, stepping closer. We'll figure it out. Together. He looked at me, his eyes searching mine, and for a moment, I thought he'd pull me close. But then he shook his head. I don't know if I can do this, he whispered. Not if it means losing everything. The words were a knife to my chest. I stood there, frozen, as he turned and walked to his room, the door closing with a finality that echoed in my bones. The apartment was too quiet without Elliot's laughter, his music, his chaos. He hadn't left, not physically, but the distance between us felt like a chasm. For days, he was a ghost, slipping out early for his shifts, coming home late, avoiding my eyes. I didn't push him. I was too afraid of what he'd say, too afraid of hearing that he'd chosen to walk away. But love doesn't let you hide forever. One night, I found him on the fire escape, staring out at the city, a cigarette dangling from his fingers. He didn't smoke often, only when he was unraveling. I climbed out to join him, the cold metal biting into my palms. Talk to me, I said, my voice barely carrying over the hum of the city below. He didn't look at me, just took a drag and exhaled a cloud of smoke. I don't know what to say, Jude, he said finally. I thought I could handle Thesis. My dad. All of it. But I'm drowning. I wanted to reach for him, to pull him close and tell him it would be okay. But I didn't. Instead, I sat beside him, our shoulders brushing, and let the silence speak for a moment. "You don't have to do this alone," I said. "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." He turned to me then, his eyes red-rimmed and raw. "Why?" he asked, his voice breaking. "Why are you still here? After everything?" "I'm a mess, Jude. I can't even promise you I'll be okay." I took a deep breath, the words I'd been holding back for months spilling out. "Because I love you," I said. "Not just the easy parts. Not just the laughter and the kisses. I love the mess, too. I love you when you're falling apart. When you're scared. When you're pushing me away. And I'm not giving up on us. Even if you are." He stared at me, his cigarette forgotten, and I saw the moment something shifted in him. He dropped the cigarette, crushing it under his heel, and reached for me. His hands cupped my face, and he kissed me, slow and deep, like he was trying to memorize every second of it. "I don't deserve you," he whispered against my lips. "You don't get to decide that," I said, pulling him closer. "We're in this together. Remember?" That night, we made a plan. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Elliot picked up extra shifts at the bar, and I started looking for freelance work to cover the rent. We talked about moving to a cheaper place, maybe outside the city, where we could build a life without the weight of his family's judgment or my job's politics. It was terrifying, the idea of starting over, but it was also freeing. For the first time, I felt like we were choosing each other, not just falling into it. But life doesn't hand out happy endings without a fight. A week later, I got called into a meeting at the community center. The board had heard rumors about me, about us. They didn't say it outright, but the message was clear. My job was on the line unless I kept things professional. I walked out of that meeting with my head high, but inside, I was crumbling. When I told Elliot, he was furious. "They can't do that," he said, pacing the apartment. "It's discrimination. We'll fight it." But I was tired of hiding. Tired of fighting battles I wasn't sure we could win. "Maybe it's not worth it," I said, my voice hollow. "Maybe we're just setting ourselves up to lose everything." He stopped pacing, his eyes blazing. "You don't get it, do you?" he said. "You're worth it. This is worth it. I lost my family, my safety net, and I'd do it again if it meant I get to keep you." His words broke something in me, but they also put me back together. I realized then that love wasn't just the easy moments, the stolen kisses and whispered promises. It was this standing side by side, facing the world's judgment, and choosing to fight for each other anyway. In the end, we didn't stay in the city. We found a small place upstate, a fixer-upper with creaky floors and a view of the mountains. It wasn't much, but it was ours. I took a job teaching art at a local school, and Elliot started playing gigs at nearby bars, his guitar carrying him through the pain of his family's rejection. We built a life, not perfect, but real. And every night, when we fell into bed together, his arms around me, I knew it was worth every fight, every fear, every moment of doubt. Because love, real love, isn't about avoiding the storm. It's about standing in the rain together, holding on tight, and knowing that no matter what comes, you're not alone.